Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shushrushro Shaddadhanasya Vasudeva Kataruchihi Shyanmahatsevaya Vipraha Punyatirtha Nishevanat. O twice born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. Shrunvatam svakatah Krishnaha Punyashravana Kirtanaha Hridayantasto Bhadrani Vidunoti Suhritsatam. Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Nashta prayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Tada rajastamo bhavaha kamalobadayascha ye cheta etair anaviddam sitam satve prasidati. As soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, the effects of nature's modes of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire, and hankering, disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness and he becomes completely happy. Evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogataha bhagavad tattva vijnanam mukta sanghasya jayate. Thus, established in the mode of unalloyed goodness, the man whose mind has been enlivened by contact with devotional service to the Lord gains positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association. Vidyate hridaya grantish chidyante sarva samshayaha kshiyante chasya karmani drishta evatmanishvare. Thus, the knot in the heart is pierced and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruitive actions is terminated when one sees the self as master. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya. Vishma Paramatma Rajivacharya, also the Sisvadesi, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai, Amachar Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Sagaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Govardhan Shama Kunda Radha Kudagiri Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavadam Ki Jai, Navadodam Ki Jai, Gang Jamuna Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Samavata Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai, Go Premanandi, all glories to some devotees. All glories to some devotees, all glories to some devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasada Buddhade Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachadane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachade Shatadane Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasudi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 2, Verse 6. Vajanti yata devan deva apitatayvatan chaiva karma asachiva sadavo dina vatsala bhajanti, worship, ye, they who, yata, in which way, devan, demigods, deva, the demigods, api, also, tata eva, just in that way, tan, them, chaya, in a shadow, eva, as if, karma, of material work and its reactions, sachiva, attendants, sadhava, saintly persons, dina vatsala, merciful to the fallen. Translation: those who worship the demigods receive reciprocation from the demigods in a way just corresponding to the offering. The demigods are attendants of karma, like a person's shadow. But the sadhus are actually merciful to the fallen. Purport: the words chaya, karma, sachiva are significant here. Chaya means shadow. The shadow of the body precisely follows the movements of the body. The shadow has no power to move in a way different from the movement of the body. Similarly, as stated here, bhajanti yata devan deva api tataiva tan, the results the demigods award to living beings correspond exactly to the living beings' actions. The demigods are empowered by the Lord to follow precisely the particular karma of a living entity in awarding him happiness and distress. Just as a shadow cannot move independently, demigods cannot punish or reward a living being independently. Although the demigods are millions of times more powerful than the human beings on earth, they are ultimately tiny servants of God, whom the Lord allows to play as the controllers of the universe. In the fourth canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, Prithu Maharaj, an empowered incarnation of the Lord, states that even the demigods are subject to punishment by the Lord if they deviate from his laws. On the other hand, devotees of the Lord, such as Narada Muni, by their potent preaching, can interfere in the karma of a living being by persuading him to give up his fruit of activity and mental speculation and surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In material existence, one works hard under the bondage of ignorance, but if one becomes enlightened by association with the pure devotee of the Lord, one can understand one's actual position as a servant, eternal servant of God. By rendering such service, one dissolves his attachment to the material world and the reactions of his previous activities, and as a surrendered soul, he is endowed with unlimited spiritual freedom in the service of the Lord. In this regard, the Brahma Samhita states, yes, Tvindragopamata ho swakarma banana rupa phala bhajanam atanoti karmani nirdahati kintu cha bhakti bhajam govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. I adore the primeval Lord, Govinda, who burns to the root all the fruit of activities of those imbued with devotion for those who walk the path of work, no less for Indra, king of the demigods, than for the tiny insect Indragopa. He impartially ordains the due enjoyments of the fruits of activities in accordance with the chain of works previously performed. Even the demigods are bound to the laws of karma, whereas a pure devotee of the Lord, having completely given up the desire for material enjoyment, successfully burns to ashes all traces of karma. In this regard, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has commented that unless one is engaged as a surrendered soul in the devotional service of the Lord, he cannot actually be considered nishkama, or free from all personal desire. Sometimes a materialistic person will engage in charity or altruistic activities, and in this way consider himself a selfless worker. Similarly, those who engage in mental speculation with the ultimate goal of merging into the impersonal Brahman aspect of the Lord also advertise themselves as being selfless or desireless. According to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, however, such karmis and gyanis, while busy in their so-called selflessness, are in fact servants of lusty desires. In other words, they have not perfectly understood their position as eternal servants of God. The altruistic karmi falsely considers himself the best friend of humanity, although he is unable to give actual benefit to others because he is ignorant of the eternal life of bliss and knowledge beyond the temporary hallucination of material existence. Similarly, although the Jnani proudly declares himself God and invites others to become God also, he neglects to explain how the so-called gods have come to be bound by the laws of material nature. Actually, the attempt to become God is based not on love of God, but on desire to take the same status as God. In other words, the desire to be equal in all respects to the Supreme is simply another materialistic desire. Therefore, the karmis and jnanis, because of their dissatisfaction in artificially trying to fulfill their own desires, can show no actual mercy to the fallen souls. In this regard, Srila Madhvacharya has quoted the Uddama Samhita, Sukhamichanti Bhutanam Prayo Dukkha Saha Nranam Tatapi Tebhya Pravara Deva Eva Hare Priya. Rishis want happiness for all beings and are almost always incapable of tolerating the unhappiness of men. Nevertheless, the demigods are superior because they are very dear to Lord Hari. But although Srila Madhvacharya has placed the demigods in a higher position than the merciful rishis, Srila Jiva Goswami has stated, sadhavas tu na karm anugata. The sadhus are actually better than the demigods because the sadhus are merciful regardless of the pious or impious acts of the conditioned souls. This apparent disagreement between Madhvacharya and Jiva Goswami is resolved by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who points out that in the statement by Srila Madhvacharya, the word rishi or sage indicates the so-called sadhus or saintly persons among the karmis and jnanis. Ordinarily, fruitive workers and speculative philosophers certainly consider themselves to be the summit of pious morality and altruism. However, since they are ignorant of the supreme position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they cannot be considered equal to the demigods, who are all devotees of the Lord and aware that all living beings are eternal servants of the Lord. Even such demigods, however, cannot be compared to the pure devotees such as Narada. Such pure devotees are empowered to award the highest perfection of life to both pious and impious living beings who have only to follow the orders of such pure devotees. Those who worship the demigods receive reciprocation from the demigods in a way just corresponding to the offering. The demigods are attendants to karma like a person's shadow. The sadhus are actually merciful to the fallen. So this is a comparison of the mercy that the demigods show to their worshippers. The mercy of the demigods is compared to the mercy of the sadhu or the devotee who is being praised here. So the demigods show mercy because they respond to people who worship them in a proper way. And nothing wrong with that, but there's also a limitation. Their mercy is defined by the type of offering. And if they don't offer, they don't get any mercy. So there's some restriction on the mercy that is given. Secondly, of course, how much mercy they can give. So we know that devotees cannot give liberation, nor can they give prema. So their limitation is something in the material world. This, of course, is not extraordinary because, or not surprising, because the people that worship the devotees aren't asking for liberation or prema. They're asking for material things, so that's what the devotees give. So anyway, the devotees function for awarding material benefits to people, right? Supplying them with material things. So they simply perform their function, and we cannot give them, we cannot blame them for that. That's what their particular duty is. Just like a person employed by the government has a certain duty, and he does that, he can't do something else. He can't go beyond the rules of the government and start doing other things. So the devatas are obedient servants. Of course, they're also devotees. But as far as being devata and acting in their capacity as devata, they have to perform their functions according to the rules. So this is exactly what they do. So that is what is indicated here. Of course, as devotees, also if they are devotees, then they can also give bhakti and so many other things. That's a separate issue. But here their particular function is to award nice material results for people who worship. Of course, if they don't worship at all and they do sinful activities, devatas also may withdraw completely their mercy, and they have to suffer in this world. So in other words, people who do sinful activities get the results of devatas, you could say anger or indifference, and they don't get any material blessings, and they have to suffer in this world. That means they get the result of sinful activities. So, in this way, according to pap and punya and whatever, the devatas respond by giving or happiness or suffering to the jivas in the material world. Now, the devotees of the Lord give mercy, and that is different because, one, the mercy goes beyond material benedictions. So the real mercy of the devotees is to give bhakti, which will give prema, which devatas, as functioning as devatas, do not give. Secondly, the awarding of bhakti is not according to karma, pap or punya, or following rules of dharma, etc. If one follows rules of dharma, then one gets according to what the devatas are going to award you. But devotees give bhakti, they give mercy, not according to karmas, but one, unconditionally. They try to give mercy to everybody. But we also know that the mercy is effective for those who have faith. And then it develops into actual bhakti. So they give mercy to those who have faith, and then they give instructions, and then those persons practice bhakti. And this way, the person pursues bhakti and gets prema. So the mercy of the devotee is not limited in the way that the mercy of the devata is limited within the bounds of karma. So that is the difference pointed out here. The mercy is much broader. Well, we may object and say that, well, would be very unjust that the devotees give mercy to the most sinful people. But no, they give mercy to everyone. They give mercy to those pious people also. So they're not prejudiced one way or the other. In that sense, their mercy is very, very liberal or broad-minded. So they don't look so much for the sin or the piety of the person, and they distribute mercy. And if a person has faith, then they give great mercy. And that faith does not depend on sin or piety. So the person in the most sinful position can have faith, and the person in a very pious position can have faith. So faith is not the result of karmas. It is not the result of gunas. If it were the result of gunas, then those in sattva guna would get the mercy and not the people in tamagun, because sattva guna is a better guna than tamagun. But no, the faith is not dependent at all upon which guna is present in a person. In that sense, unpredictable as far as material karma and gunas are concerned. As for that reason, the devotees give mercy everywhere. Of course, in the previous purport, it's mentioned that even the dogs get mercy, whatever like that. So, not only human beings, even dogs can get the mercy of a devotee, or plants can get the mercy of the devotee. So it said that Haridas Thakur, he chanted loudly so that even the moving and non-moving entities other than human beings could get the effect of the vibration of the holy name. And it was beneficial for them. So the devotees give mercy everywhere. However, though the devotees give mercy everywhere, that mercy sprouts in those who have faith. It doesn't quite sprout in those who don't have faith. So, though they give mercy everywhere, the particular persons where we see visible result are those who have faith, and then that turns into bhakti. Even if the person doesn't have faith, there is still some effect. So the effect on persons with no faith is that it helps create a fertile field for the seed of bhakti. In other words, it helps create faith in those jivas. So one may not have faith, and so even if the devotee gives mercy, we don't see any direct result. But internally, there is some result. The jiva begins to change a little bit and becomes a little favorable to the Lord. So, therefore, the mercy of the devotees is everywhere, but we only see the visible effects in those who have developed faith, and then they can actually take to the process of bhakti. But in any case, the devotees are merciful to all the jivas. So this is quite unlike the demigods, who respond to particular types of worship and then they give results. So this is a praise for the devotee, that they're merciful to all living entities without regard for their particular karmas. So karma is, consideration of karma is there because we have gunas, and people in tamagun are less qualified in the material world, and people in sattvagun are more qualified for as far as papa and punya are concerned. So people in sattvagun have less sin, more piety, clearer mind, control of the senses, control of the mind, understanding of Atma. So it's a better position to be in as far as material world is concerned. So sattvagun is praised in the scriptures as being a much higher level. So for ordinary people, the Lord gives mercy to persons in the material world who are ignorant according to gunas. So gunas become a consideration, and gunas are connected with karma. More sinful activities, more tamagun; more punyas, more sattva. So gunas and karma are related to each other. And the more punyas that you do, then the more sattvic you become, and the more response you get from the devotees as a result of that. So nothing wrong with this, because sattva is good. It is one step towards a purification of the jiva, because one becomes more detached from material life, etc. In that sense, sattva is better than tamagun or rajagun. In spite of that, bhakti is not dependent upon the gunas, because it may appear in a tamagun person, or it may appear in a sattvagun person. Now, if it appears in a sattvagun person, fine, that's some advantage, because he's less attached to the material world. A person in tamagun more attached to the material world, has more sinful activities, more problems, etc. So may be difficult for him to practice bhakti. However, the process of bhakti itself solves the problem, because bhakti itself destroys all the gunas. So a person may start bhakti in tamagun, and he can destroy tamagun, rajagun, and sattvagun. A person in sattvagun can perform bhakti and destroy sattvagun also. So they end up in the same position ultimately, nirguna. We can argue, well, the person in tamagun, his bhakti is not so effective as a person in sattvagun. But that's also not true, because we see that Ajamil accidentally chanted the name, and he was very sinful, and he had no bhakti, and all his karmas got removed instantaneously. So he was in a very low position, but instantaneous result of purification. So the effectiveness of bhakti doesn't depend on papa or punya at all, really. It works in either case. Like a medicine will work, whether you're a Sudra or a Brahmana. The same medicine works in the same way. So, therefore, bhakti is powerful in either case, and it destroys karma. So, the person in sattvagun also has karma. If he had no karma, he would be liberated. So he also has karma. He just has good karma instead of bad karma. But nevertheless, he still has piles and piles of karma, aparabdha and prarabdha karmas. So it's only the type of karma, that's all. But in any case, he's bound up by the material world. So bhakti also destroys those karmas of sattvagun bondage. So either way, whether it's tamagun or sattvagun or rajagun, bhakti will destroy all those karmas. So therefore, the devotees ultimately end up in the same position, because they destroy all their karmas either way. The only factor is not the gunas, the factor is aparad. The person who has more aparads gets his karmas destroyed more slowly through the process of bhakti. If one has no aparads, then we get instantaneous effect, as in the case of Ajamil. So, in other words, it's the aparad that is the factor on slowness or fast, and not the gunas. And well, we could say, well, people in tamagun will get more aparads. Not so. A person in sattvagun can get plenty of aparads also, because they may end up mayavadis, impersonalists, and whatever. Then they're too much aparad, worst aparadis. Because they say the Lord doesn't exist, or the Lord has no form, the Lord is illusory, bhakti is material. Then big aparad, then very difficult to remove all the karmas, a very slow process. Ajamil, of course, had no knowledge of anything at all, so that was his benefit. So therefore, no aparad's a quick effect. So the more knowledge you get sometimes, the worse it becomes, the more aparads you commit. So the Brahmana may have more aparads than the Sudra as a result of his knowledge, or false knowledge. So, therefore, the main factor in effectiveness as bhakti is not gunas, sattvagun, rajagun, tamagun, but rather amount of aparads. And the aparads against bhakti and the holy name and the devotees does not depend on gunas at all. So the person in sattvagun may commit more aparads than the person in tamagun. So that is the only factor. So in other words, these are aparads are like sin, but they are sin against the Lord and the devotee and the process of bhakti. Whereas sin in the material world is sin against other living entities, violence against other living entities, or against the system of dharma. Or the devotees or whatever. So aparad is offense against the Lord and the devotee in the process of bhakti. So one may be in sattvagun, but one can commit aparads against the devotees or the Supreme Lord or devotional service. So therefore aparad is the factor not dependent on gunas at all.
So, therefore, bhakti is, and the devotee of the Lord who gives out bhakti is very, very special. Huh? So, the devotees are in a position of developing good spiritual qualities. Subhada is the second characteristic of bhakti, and that means developing good qualities. One of those qualities is to be affectionate towards all living entities. So here it says Dina Vatsala. They are very affectionate to the fallen souls, the miserable people of this world. So the affection for the living entity resides ultimately in the Supreme Lord. Supreme Lord has affection for all the jivas because they are his devotees, even if they don't know it. So the devotees themselves share that attitude of the Supreme Lord. And again, they're merciful and affectionate towards all living entities, like the Lord. Only difference is that the devotee sees the jiva unrelated to the Supreme Lord. The Lord sees the jivas unrelated to himself. That's all the devotee sees in terms of relationship of others with the Supreme Lord. So the mercy consists of producing a link between the jiva and the Supreme Lord. So this is the process of giving out bhakti to jivas. So that is how the mercy of the devotee manifests. He wants to give out bhakti to all the jivas. And because bhakti can go anywhere, in any guna, to any person, it's very, very liberal. Not dependent on karmas at all, not dependent on gunas, unlike the process by which the devotees give results for their particular worship by the jiva. So in this way, the devotees are much, much more merciful. Bhakti itself has mercy as its component. Bhakti is intrinsic to the Supreme Lord himself. So he is called Bhaktavatsala. He is very affectionate towards his devotee. And then one of his qualities is he's controlled by his devotee. Such is his affection. In fact, that's his greatest quality. So, that affection manifests as mercy. It is a type of mercy that the Lord has for the devotee. Because he has affection for the devotee, he likes to do things for the devotee. That's his mercy. So that is the nature of bhakti itself. Bhakti has within it great affection and mercy. So the Lord has mercy for all jivas. So the devotee shares that aspect of bhakti, of being merciful, and therefore he tries to give out bhakti to all the jivas of this material world. So it's his very nature to be merciful. So as I said, devatas are merciful as in their function of devata by acting within those rules that they have. You do a certain activity, you get a certain result. So there's limitation there, and it's all material. Can a jnani show mercy? Ultimately, the jnani has to show indifference to everything. His nature is complete indifference to everything. So mercy actually is not a good quality for a impersonalist. Because everything actually, if you show mercy to things, we're making duality and things like this in the material world. So mercy for an impersonalist is contradictory to the very nature of it. So we see that even for the Citta Pragya, he is situated with no happiness and no distress. Of course, he doesn't commit violence against other living entities, but he shows indifference towards everything. Happiness and distress or whatever like that. But when we speak about devotees, we understand that the devotee, when he sees suffering living entities, then he takes that suffering as his own suffering. And it's not considered a bad quality. So that is what his mercy is. He's very compassionate to the fallen souls. But it is unlike the compassion shown in Dharma, in Sattva Gun, where you want to care for the body of the living entity. So the devotee sees the suffering. Of course, the suffering is in terms of the body, but the devotee sees the solution to that, and that is get rid of the material body. So make the person a devotee, then we get beyond the material body. That's the solution for the devotee, not to continue the material body with an adjustment of karma. So in this way, the devotee gives an ultimate solution. So that's greater mercy than anyone else. The devotee tries to solve the problems of the jiva permanently. So in this way, he is more merciful than the others also.
When you talk about the processes of the sadhus, because this sort of quality or consciousness can come only from the consent of the Lord. And what is the benefit a sadhu gets by showing this causeless mercy?
There's no benefit because then it's not causeless anymore. If we're trying to get something, then it has a reason behind it. Of course, we can say that ultimately mercy is not causeless. Ultimately, there is a cause. The cause of the mercy of the Lord is he has affection for devotees. He is controlled by bhakti. He has affection for the jivas. So that is the cause in one sense. But it is causeless in the sense there's no material cause. I will give mercy to that person because he's a brahmana, or because he's this or he's that or whatever. That type of reason, or because he's well educated, he has knowledge or whatever. So not material cause in that sense, causeless. From the devotee's point of view, of course, causeless mercy is a reflection of that. And he's not interested in material qualifications of a person, and he has no personal interest. He's not doing it to get something out of that other person. He's not doing it for himself, for some benefit for himself. He's doing it on behalf of the Supreme Lord. And Supreme Lord has mercy and gives mercy not to get something out of the jiva, but to simply benefit the jiva. To great happiness for the jiva. So in that sense, it's causeless. What's that?
Whether they are all pervading like Paramatma, demigods?
Well, they have some powers. They're not all pervading, but definitely the devotees have power because they distribute your karmas to you. If you offend the sun deity, then you get trouble in your eyes. Or you offend Mars, you may get marriage problem or something like that. So for all the jivas, they have some control. And they are control of all your senses. The voice is fire, Agni, eye is sun, mind is moon, etc. So the devotees have some supervision over all your sense organs of all the jivas in the material world. So they have great power.
So they decide the happiness and distress of the jivas, whether they...
According to the jiva's karma.
Correct.
Yeah.
Usually, according to the Varnashram system, if we don't perform our daily and periodic duties, we are sinful. So we should be in Tamogun. But we find Jains and Buddhists, they don't believe in demigods, they don't perform Nityanaimittika karmas, but they are apparently in Sattvaguna. So how do we understand this?
Well, the Vedic system is one system. Now we have other systems that don't follow the Vedas, and they're not approved. This does not condemn them in the gunas as such. It's just not an approved system. So we say it's not so perfect as the Vedic system for producing sattva guna or whatever. System is there. So anyone who follows some system in which there's less violence to living entities ultimately gets more sattva. But it's not so systematic in terms of defining what the sin is and what the piety is. So, for instance, in Christianity, okay to kill animals, but not good to kill human beings. So that's their concept, which isn't so perfect. The Jains have better, so they don't want to commit sin against the bugs or anything else. So, better concept there. But then this is completely unrelated to bhakti, completely. So therefore, again, it doesn't really work because anything that's not related to the Lord ultimately is not a proper system, and it doesn't give us proper results.
And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, we find that Haridas Thakur, his way of preaching was chanting loudly, as you were mentioning. But he also tells Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that by this, the non-moving entities, they get liberated. But whereas Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is to give them prema. So when we chant and they get mukti, so they never get prema, isn't it?
Mukti in that sense means they destroy their bad karmas or whatever like that. Doesn't mean they all merge into Brahman immediately, but let's say they can destroy their karmas. Like Namabhas can get you up to liberation in the sense that it destroys your bad karmas.
Maharaj, a person in Tamoguna gets the fortune of getting the mercy of a devotee, but at the same time that living entity continues his Tamoguna activities and also practices devotional service. What would happen to that kind of living entity?
Well, of course, when we talk about pure bhakti, we're talking about pure bhakti now. Of the whole, this thing about mercy, etc., we're talking about pure bhakti. So the faith is in pure bhakti also. Someone who's developed faith in pure bhakti, he gets mercy, then he practices pure bhakti, which means anya abhilasha shuna jnana karma dhanavartam. So then his practice would not be affected by tamogun. Because tamagun means laziness, ignorance, violence, and all these things. Whereas pure bhakti means no bad intentions at all. So definitely he may have tendencies towards tamagun because that's where he's starting from, but his intention is that is not proper, and he's trying to pursue highest goal of pure bhakti. So in the process, yes, he may be affected by some tamagun, not intentionally, but accident or whatever like that. Those should all disappear as bhakti progresses. If it's not pure bhakti, it could be mixed bhakti, it could be tamagun bhakti, it could be karma Mr. bhakti or whatever, then of course that's a different type of faith, and we get different results for that as well. In any case, if you do bhakti, you get some elevation. So even tamagun bhakti, with just bhakti with lots of wrong concepts and ignorance covering over, you can gradually elevate yourself in the material world. But of course, it's not the best result. It's some result, not the best result. So you get some result, but it'd be, limited.
In the context of faith, if you understand properly, this Shishupala, what kind of faith that he had, but still he got some benefit like liberation.
Shishupala had hatred, no faith.
Yeah. Okay.
His only benefit was he hated the Supreme Lord, who was Krishna. And because it was Krishna is all attractive, he concentrated his hatred intensely on him, and he kept thinking of Krishna's wonderful form. So that purified him. And so when he got killed, then he went to the spiritual world. But it wasn't bhakti. Well, no faith.
Okay. In regard to Narada Maharaj, Narada was been preaching to the sons of Daksha. For that he got cursed again. The activities of Daksha in compared to Narada. Narada actually was performing bhakti. Narada was spreading Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
Whereas Daksha acts in so indifferently to curse him.
Yeah, so that's lower consciousness. People on a lower level, they don't appreciate the activities of bhakti. They don't understand its superior position. And so this says Daksha is an offender. He doesn't understand the superior position of bhakti over karma, etc.
But you said that the Lord simply benefits the jiva by His mercy. He's not, it's costless, He doesn't expect anything in return. That's the perspective that we understand. The other perspective is also that the Lord is also looking for all the living entities to come back to Him so that He can perform Leela with them.
Yeah.
So which means there is kind of a cost for Him to get back all the living entities there.
Well, I said ultimately that mercy is not causeless in the sense there's no cause at all. Obviously, cause of the Lord's mercy is He has affection for the jivas, and He wants to see them all blissful. So that's a cause in one sense. But that's intrinsic in the Lord Himself, and it hasn't got any selfish motive also. It's for the benefit of the jiva. So in that sense, causeless.
Manoj, when we are talking about faith, and you said that the effects of bhakti are visible only when have faith.
Yeah.
But even if one engages in some kind of devotional service without faith, it influences him. So can we say that faith is a point where one actually takes a conscious decision?
Yeah. Yeah.
So becomes favorable little by little, and then comes to a point of taking an actual decision, then it actually manifests as...
Yeah, before faith, it's accidental. He doesn't seek out bhakti. If he sought out bhakti, then he would have faith. So therefore, the only way he gets the bhakti is accidentally he bumps into it. Accidentally he sees a devotee, accidentally he gets prasadam, and he doesn't even, maybe even appreciate it or whatever like that. So it's all unconscious at that stage. But gradual increase of favorability towards the Lord is there in the jiva, until it becomes conscious. Then it becomes so strong that then when he's thinking, then he develops some interest in it, and then he seeks out devotion. So then it's just the conscious aspect when faith develops.
So it can be very sudden. For example, in case of Ajamil, he did not have any faith. Till that time, actually, he saw the Yamdutas and the Vishnu Dutas, and then in that short period, he developed the kind of faith, left everything and went to Haridwar.
Yeah, yeah.
Maharaj, second thing, regarding, you said sometimes more knowledge or false knowledge is more dangerous. And similarly, if Maharaj, devotees perform devotional service, we say it cannot be performed without a Sangha, Sadhu Sangha. But we also see that the offenses are committed in Sadhu Sangha.
Yeah.
When one is in association with devotees, there is a possibility of committing offense.
Yeah. Well, so that's because of lack of knowledge again. So we have to, don't commit offense against devotees, everything like this. So we got the knowledge, and if you ignore the knowledge or you don't have that knowledge, then of course you can commit the offense.
But it could also be a result of the modes which the person is in. For example...
Well, we can't blame it on the modes, because ultimately it's the decision of the individual and his intelligence to act in a certain way.
Correct, Maharaj.
Modes are there, obviously, but we can't, and they're an influence, but they should be decreasing with the effect of bhakti. Yeah? So if you perform bhakti properly, the mode should not influence you so much.
Yes. Yeah. But Maharaj, if we see that there are qualities of a Brahmana or Brahmanical or Sattvic qualities are actually more favorable, and person is expected to be more following the etiquettes than compared to a person who is actually in Tamogun. So this could be in the beginning stages. As one matures in devotional service.
Yeah. So Sattva Gun in general is more favorable, but it has some negative aspects as well. So the person in Sattva Gun gets attached to those particular things, which are also material rituals. So he gets attached to those and thinks, I must do them. And if I don't do them, it's sinful. So that again is an offense. But this becomes a karma misra bhakti then. Or then he may get attracted to impersonalism and Mayavad concepts, because the result of Sattva Gun is Atmagyan. So then he maybe be influenced by merging in Brahman and getting liberation. So that also can be turned into an offense. So it has some negative aspects also.
So is it good to understand that these modes actually have an influence in terms of devotee relationships in the beginning stages, but gradually as these bhakti matures, then one actually comes out of that with knowledge?
Well, yeah, obviously a tamagun person, when he starts in tamagun, therefore he's got less control of the senses, more ignorance, etc. So that's unfavorable. And a person in the mode of goodness would have more, but in one sense that's also superficial. because, as I said, the process of bhakti can very quickly destroy the effects of any guna, and if there's no aparad. And if there is aparad, of course, then it'll be a slow process. So the person in sattva gun has sense control, etc., but he may have these aparads about wrong concepts of Bhagavan, etc., and needs material, etc. So therefore his karmas will get more slowly destroyed, whereas the person tamagun may have no aparad, and then very quickly. So then he's in a better position than the brahmana who has to struggle with all of his karmas and attachments to karma, because he's getting a slower destruction of karmas.
One last question was, in the continuation of the same thing, if we see in ISKCON, that may not be a problem in terms of wrong conception of God, because at least in ISKCON it's very, very clear, God, and even some basic Prabhupada books will explain that. But Maharaj, it's still, I mean, as we see it, that probably ISKCON and maybe one or two more institutions are actually preaching about pure devotional service. And the environment around us is becoming increasingly more tamasic. And so isn't the life of a devotee more challenging as days go by? It becomes more and more challenging to become and practice pure devotion.
Well, it's less challenging for the devotee than it is for a brahmana. Because the devotee is beyond the gunas, whereas a brahmana has to shelter himself from all the other gunas and try to maintain sattva.
But sometimes, Maharaj, we say that even in ISKCON, one may have to take several lifetimes to actually reach the goal of life.
Yeah, but still, that's beyond the gunas still. Yeah? That's even in Bharat's time, he had to take 3 lifetimes, and he wasn't in Kali Yuga either. And he was in Manu's line as well, so it had nothing to do with the gunas. It's just the effects of bhakti and the progress of bhakti, that's all.
पीड़ पराई
जाने रे वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीड़ पराई जाने रे
पर दुखी उपकार करे तो ये मन अभिमान नानी रे
वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे
पीड़ पराई जाने रे
सकल लोक मां सहुने वंदे निंदा न करेगे नीरे
सकल लोक मां सहुने वंदे
निंदा न
सहुने वंदे
निंदा करेगे नीरे राखे धन धन जननी तेनी रे
वाच काच मन निश्चल राखे धन धन जननी तेनी रे वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीड़ पराई जाने रे
समदृष्टिने तृष्णा त्यागी
परस्त्री जेने मातरे जिह्वा थकी असत्य न बोले परधन न बचाले हाथ रे
जिह्वा थकी असत्य न बोले पर धन नव झाले हाथ रे
वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीड़ पराए जाने रे
मोह माया व्यापे नहीं जेने
दृढ़ वैराग्य देना मन मारे राम नाम शु तानी लागे सकल तीर्थ देना तन मारे
राम नाम शु तानी रे लागे सकल तीरथ के तन मारे
वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीड़ पराए जाने रे
वर्णलोभीने कपट रहित छे
काम क्रोध निवार्या रे घणे नरसैयो तेनु दर्शन करता पुणे को तेरे तार्या रे
घणे नरसैयो तेनु दर्शन करता कुलये को तेरे तार्या रे
वैष्णव जन तो